All right, it is September 18th at 1:32. This is a regular meeting of the American Rescue Plan ARPA Commission. I'll call to order the meeting. Our chair is running late and will be here shortly. We are lacking a quorum currently, but because the agenda was not posted within 24 hours, we're unable to take any action, so this meeting will only be discussion purposes. So roll call, we have Donna, Troy, Mike D'Amato, and myself in attendance. Review of the minutes. We can't take action, but Mike, you're finishing up the minutes from our June 26th meeting.
Yeah, there was one or two things I may need to get clarification on, so I wasn't there, but they're pretty much done.
All right, so updates on previously funded requests. So if information I have is correct, I'll kind of go through them. ARPA 5, the SCBA, I believe that project is complete. You sure
Yeah,
that's Stuart Fisher?
Get some emails. Go on.
We actually have started, Stuart. Okay.
Yes, you know.
Do your records show that, Donna? It looks like 113, 338, 35. And we will, when we close, we'll have 23, 661, 65 to return. The generator for Public Works, Troy,
Is all complete, and we should be returning $21,323.
perfect. The check is gonna be cut today, and again, because we can't take action, we won't actually be closing anything today. So that should be ready to close at our next meeting. ARPA 13 is the devices for town staff and senior center. That was also a network refresh. That project is complete. We're working on closing out some POs, so I don't have the exact number to return. I hope to have that at our next meeting. But that will be ready to close. Working with finance today. The bridge program, I believe all that money was expended. Correct? Was that closed, Donna? Did it not?
Yes, it's closed.
It's already closed, okay.
Yes.
Oh, I know it's on here because we want to update. I would like to hear from, I know I'd asked Christina, I'd like to hear from some of those folks that we gave funds to. And I've expressed some concern with at least one entity and how they're utilizing the funds. So I think it would be nice if maybe they could either in a written report or some kind of report to us. Share with us how they've used the funds. The majority of those recipients received $15,000 and they each had to provide criteria that was used for the basis of granting the award as to what those dollars would be used for.
Yeah, in my notes from the last meeting, we discussed December report, reaching out, having the EPC reach out to them and ask for a status at that point. Based upon when the funds were provided, wanted to give them enough time to actually make progress on whatever they were gonna do. So I had in there that would be happening in December.
Okay. Do you know if EDC has started to reach out to them?
They're doing, the EDC separately is doing, trying to have like a business visits and business consultation. I don't know, we haven't gotten into the nuts and bolts of how those discussions have gone or if they've had overlap, but we have a meeting coming up as well after.
Okay. ARPA 10 is meeting room equipment. So the original funding for this was equipment for this room and the upstairs meeting room. Initially, it was all the money was gonna go into the upstairs meeting room. We have begun to use a small portion of it. Sitting in this room, you notice the nice new screen on the wall in front of us. The entire board can now see what's on Zoom. The monitor that was there can be viewed by the public. So we had an electrician come in and put new outlets for us. We hung the owl from the ceiling, and a lot of that was to make sure that we could manage the devices and the wires so that the room was safe for use. We had lots of cords here, there, and everywhere. So this is only the second time this equipment has been utilized. Upstairs, we have not added additional monitors. That room is challenging at best. But we did put the same ceiling mount in for the owl upstairs again to get those wires off the ground and a little bit more manageable. So the idea is, pre-COVID, this was our main meeting space. The upstairs room was used for overflow meetings. For those rare occasions, there were 2 meetings on the same night. So we're moving back to that direction. So you'll start to see more meetings back here where they used to be, and that meeting space will be overflow. Or in the event we need to space out again. So we still have a significant amount of money. I can get this fixed. I will say to you all that upstairs, we have had some issues with the old air conditioning wall units that were up there, and so we're looking at I've gotten some quotes to see what it would cost to put new air conditioning in that room. When we discussed this, the Board of Selectmen asked me if we could use the funds we had for this meeting room equipment. I did not feel like that was an acceptable use because how I had requested the project funding was specifically for hybrid meeting equipment. And I think that's a little bit of a reach, certainly too much of a reach for me to just say, yeah, we'll go ahead and use those dollars. We're looking somewhere close to $20,000 to put some new air conditioning in there. It's about what we have left in this project. But unless this group had a discussion and felt comfortable with that, I do not plan to move forward to utilize those funds in that way. So I don't know if we want to have a discussion, if you want to think about it. It's not at all the project that I had come to ARPA looking for, so I see it as a very different use.
The only thing I'm thinking is the room's basically useless for the purposes the money was spent on, because it doesn't have heat and AC.
And
I get it.
It has heat. I should not say it does have heat. It absolutely, so it can be used. Like today is a day it could be used. When I suggested we move down here, didn't know what the weather would bring, right? We're still in that season where it could be very hot outside. And there's just nothing up there now. So we moved down here and we have the space available. If it were a cold day, we could turn the heat on. That does work. It is separate from the air conditioning unit.
but if it's stifling hot, would the equipment fail because it's too hot?
It could.
Oh, I mean.
Right, so I've turned off all of the equipment, and right now we have a temporary, very large fan up there. We've opened the windows when it's not pouring rain to be able to still utilize that. But, you know, the question specific to this board was, can these funds from this project be repurposed for that? And I'm not comfortable with that without action by this board. And then my opinion is if we start adjusting how we use all these projects, then we have to use that balance on every other project. Additionally, I'm not sure we're done outfitting that room up there so that it can be used in a more efficient manner. It's just such a needy space for our meetings. It's great to put a lot of people in, but we don't have, it wasn't meant to be a meeting room with that kind of tech equipment. So where we put it in this large open room is challenging at best. So I could still repurpose some of those dollars for that and then return the rest. But because there is not an opening to request this funding for new projects, my recommendation to the Board of Selectmen is that we look at different avenues. But that I would bring it up here.
Every time I've been down here, people get up and wave at the motion sensor. Can we do something about that?
We're working on that. We actually have an electrician in here today.
Alright, there's some options that I'm like.
Yeah, well, it's always been in the same place. and it never had a problem.
You can do a timer, you
Till-
can do infrared,
Well, so that device worked until,
you moved it up.
we didn't move it up.
Oh,
It was a power failure or
Yeah.
something.
It was something, yeah, and then we tried setting.
Okay.
Yeah, and so it kind of reset itself and we haven't, but I
Alright,
like.
so
the
you're on
choices
it.
that We're on
Great,
it.
okay.
Yeah, especially as we begin to use this space more
It's a
often.
little silly.
If you come down there, it recognizes you, it doesn't recognize us way down here, so pretty soon
Alright.
we're gonna make sure jump up.
Okay.
I think that for consistency purposes, it's just gonna be far easier if we don't start adding on things that were not part of the scope into projects, because we're gonna be in a position where we're gonna potentially, you know, say that someone will be uncomfortable because it didn't go to hearing, or if someone asks for something that we don't necessarily think is surprising, it's much more simple to just keep it to what was discussed and presented. I mean, if
And
something,
excuse me, the likelihood of that is there, there's money left over, I have a need, I spend it. No one's asked me to report that, I don't think, until I heard you say it today.
Well, I think we have to really, so I'm only spending the dollars in the way in which the program was approved.
I get that.
And so I just feel like this is so far outside of that, that I wouldn't be comfortable even suggesting to us that we do that, nor am I comfortable saying, let's repurpose the remainder of it, because then I think every dollar that was left over from someone's project, we'd then be opening the door to say, well, you had 21, you know, Troy, I use Troy's example, you have 21,000 left from your generator. Now, he can find another DPW use for that, and I don't think that's our intent, it certainly was not the intent when we brought this. This dollar amount was specific to a clear project for that room for very
Right.
specific equipment. And then we had a shortage in a supply chain shortage. And then the cost of everything was driven so high that all of that was put on hold. And so far, what little funds we have used were to outfit this room and some of the electrical work down here and upstairs where we put outlets in the floor downstairs and in the columns, so that again, we could manage the wires and for safety purposes. So unless someone felt differently, I think the group seems to be in a consensus. I'll report that back to the selectmen. We'll look at what we want to do with equipment for that room. And then when we're done with that, return whatever's left. This is only the second meeting to use this equipment down here. The Board of Ed had their meeting last week. Phil did say the video was rather quiet. So I think, excuse me, there may be a need for some microphones. And that's a much simpler project, and they would just be kind of drop down mics. And then something upstairs, so I will investigate that, utilize these dollars specifically for hybrid meeting room equipment, and we'll work on the air conditioning upstairs with other funds. Just what I thought. All right, we were kind of going, project by project. Right.
Yeah, keep going.
Okay, so the next one is ARPA 15, the senior center coordinator position. Donna, how far do you think the rest of the funds will take us through this fiscal year?
Yes,
So
have a definite update for you next time when those funds will run out.
okay,
And that was the intent,
yeah,
yeah,
Yes.
but it definitely phases out.
yeah, it just didn't get started later, and then, the negotiated cost was higher than.
Right.
can you just go back and touch on 5 and 13? I was making a copy and that one.
Yeah, 5, I believe, is ready to close, and it will return just over 23,000.
How much?
Return 23,661.65. And 13 will be ready to close. I don't have a final dollar amount that will return. We're working on closing out some POs today. I had to touch base with Novus about some open POs we had. So ARPA 16 is the radios for the fire department. Those are all in. They still have some things to do on their end, but they've received and paid for everything. So it's not much left. It's, I think, in the hundreds of dollars. Tracker quote.
So we can, yeah, I think it's like 300.
Yeah, so at our next meeting there, we should have a significant list to close,
Good,
but the ARPA 10 is not one of them.
okay.
ARPA 1718 is the walking track drainage and light project at River Road. Stuart, do you have an update for them?
I'd like to have more of an update. We met with Carl and he really hadn't made much progress at all since the last time we talked, so. I talked about that with the board and we're trying to light a little fire under him to get him going.
Okay.
It's the same proposal he gave a month ago
Okay,
and I'm a little discouraged by that.
all right, maybe I'll reach out to him and see what we can do.
Yeah, we have a board meeting and I've asked Jim to make sure that he's invited and can represent where he's at, but I will reach out,
Who?
I'm sorry, the rec director.
Oh, Jimmy, yes,
Oh, I
Jimmy,
got it right?
yes,
Okay. Okay.
okay, great.
Yeah, so I will also reach out, stay on top of Carl.
Okay. ARPA 20 is the new furnace at the firehouse. I think that's ready to close too. Is that correct, Helen?
Yes, I believe it is.
I put that in.
Yeah, that one that Tom said.
The fuel bank, we added an additional $10,000. We have not used any, and I think, I wanna say we had around $27 left over. Yeah, so, and we are just beginning to take applications for the winter heating season, so our plan is to use any federal funds first, state funds after that, and then our local funds, so it could be a while, before we utilize those. ARPA 23 is summer camp supplement,
Excuse me, which firehouse is the furnace for?
Wellington Hill,
Well,
the
they
one right
help,
down here, down the street,
not the one.
no, the one right here. No. All right, summer camp supplement. Donna, are we on track with those funds, do you know?
Yes, the revenue infusion for the camp that just finished, and there'll be one more revenue infusion next year. to
And,
close
and
it.
that's the, like, we keep stepping it down, so.
Yeah.
This year was half,
Yes.
next year is a quarter.
Yes,
So the families take 3/4.
And I think the best news for that is, and I know, we had hope, but I certainly had some trepidation as to whether or not we filled capacity in year one when it was free, would we see them come back at half, and we did. So we were full almost every week. We did 5 instead of 6 weeks. Next week, we hope to go back to the 6 weeks. But it almost every week was at or near capacity.
That's good.
So that was really good to hear.
So they made a profit then.
They should, yes, and it was, we've got some great feedback, and so kudos to Jimmy in his first
Good.
year in that role, so.
like his first week.
Yeah,
He had to jump right into that.
yeah, I think he had, a week or a week and a half between the day he started and then that first day of summer
Oh
camp.
my gosh.
So it was really feet into the fire, and he really, he jumped right in, and he had a great camp staff,
Mhm.
and they did great. I heard lots of good things about it, so. I'm excited for what next year will bring when the majority of the payment is on those families, and if we stay at those numbers, it speaks to what we had hoped to do with that money. All right, ARPA 26 is the forestry plan for Mason Road. Did we expend those dollars, Donna?
okay, number
ARPA
26,
26.
okay, we did. Number 26,
I remember seeing
we
the
closed it
contract.
on June 26th.
Oh, we closed that one.
Yes, no, 20, and we spent them both.
All right, that's ARPA 27 is building materials. That may, I know they had said to us that may take several years to complete. Is it? Did you get it up there?
Yeah, no, I didn't get any update on that, but yeah.
We haven't had any additional expenses for hearings, so we're sitting stable with that. The last one was in March.
Yeah, Donna, do you happen to know for ARPA 29 what our current amount spent is though? Because my note, it said, today it said 796 has been spent to hold 3 public hearings, expenses from January and March were not yet included in that total, so.
So I have a total of $789.15 expended in 22-23.
So from the report I have, I can't see the dates. I can just see the amounts that we pulled Donna's amount. So we'll look to make sure that those January and March if those numbers include those dates. But
Yeah, but if it's 22, those were in that fiscal year.
yeah,
Okay.
Handle on my door.
okay. All right, ARPA 31, Historical Society Archival Storage.
I haven't heard anything from them.
They didn't get us an update for our next meeting. Retention bonuses for town employees, staff, that project is complete. We will be returning, the dollars. It's just, just over $4,000, like 4,200 and some change. So if you recall, the project as it was proposed was bonuses for staff, which we gave out last December, and then some funds to use for town and BOE staff. So we had at the end of the school year, we had a luncheon between school and town staff. And then at the beginning of the school year, we had a luncheon on the same day. They're separate at each school and then here. So and we'll still return about 4,200. Phil and I feel confident that that, you know, meets exactly what we intended to do with those funds. Great. All right, ARPA 33, I was hoping Ed would be here. We have invoices that will use all of this, that actually has it overexpended by what he has sent in.
Mhm.
So I'm holding up on paying some things.
Okay,
We have some, information that doesn't tell us what it was for, just has dollar amounts, there's some tax things, so, reached out to him to try to get some clarification and see, why we're overspent.
right, so yeah,
So, I have about six.
their group would need to pay that.
That is
thing,
correct, and
yeah.
so one of the reimbursements of the invoices he gave us now are going back to their foundation,
Mhm.
so we would pay their foundation less,
And their foundation is a legitimate,
501c3.
yeah,
Yes,
no, so
So-
they were in the process.
Yeah.
of coming first.
so I have some questions, I think they've given us some duplicates, so want to sit down with him and go over that documentation.
Mhm.
And just, you know, for clarification, what we're looking for is if you've given us an item to pay, whether it's $33 or $33,000, we need to know what it was for.
Yeah.
And so all I've gotten is, this is how much it spent. But it doesn't actually tell us what the item is. So I said, no, until we get some clarification, so. But if, once that's the case, and we agree on all of the documentation we have and it fits the criteria, we should be able to close that next week
Great,
or next meeting.
next meeting.
Deb and Hope were here from the library before. They haven't done anything yet with their project.
The retaining wall?
Yeah, she said they were looking for, she just said to us, they were looking for quotes and they only had a couple and were questioning how many they had to do. We gave them some advice on putting out an RFP for the project they wanted done. And so hopefully they'll get the assistance they need with that to move forward.
Okay, because they really thought they were gonna get this done in the spring.
Didn't do anything. She said they're still looking for, they were looking for quotes.
Okay.
So, and we had a good conversation with them here on. That I hope they'll. Speak with them when they're part of the process. All right, ARPA 41 is the stove for senior center. I had some questions. I know they paid for the stove and the project was the stove and the wiring. That they wanted to spend some
Right.
additional funds on
The pots and
pots and
pans
pans.
that go with the stove.
But they don't go with, and I see it as different, or maybe I'm the only one that. Some of these projects, there might be other things you need because you got a new piece of equipment, but
It falls in the same
I think yeah,
category as the air conditioner with the new one.
it's kind of an unintended consequence of needing a new stove.
Yeah, but the way, I think he explained it to me after, was it's like special pieces that go with that stove. So it's like, he's not just looking for like a pan, it's like a very specific one that works with that stove. So it's like you can't use the stove without it.
My understanding was that they
Like a
were
green
pans that
stuff,
fit,
you mean?
but mine were,
Yeah.
my understanding was that they were pans to use in it because the ones they had were different sizes, because the stove is a different size. So maybe
Yeah.
some clarification on that before we,
Yeah, okay,
and.
cause in my mind, like, yeah, if you can't use it. Then, yeah, then it's useless, then it is part of it, they just didn't scope it out properly,
Right.
right,
So,
in the
yeah.
beginning. But if it's just any old thing,
Right, if it's normal,
yeah, I see that as a different thing.
yeah, if it's a function, an additional stove part as opposed to just different kind of baking pans.
Yeah,
That I see that as, again, an unintended consequence of a new stove.
hmm. Okay,
So when we sit down with him about the flags and monument project, we'll ask about that.
okay,
Recess equipment, Bill said they haven't spent all of theirs, but they will spend every penny,
okay, so we won't close it yet.
yeah.
Mm,
And I don't know, he didn't say anything about the extended learning opportunity.
I bet that's not ready.
Bring the ARPA 46, the E code 360, Mike and Robin.
We gave them all the ordinances last week, our contract is signed, we will be sending the last set of regulations on 10-1. That gets billed as a percent complete, so we don't pay anything up front. So we won't have that closed until it's all completed.
The EDC or, yeah, Economic Development Strategic Plan, which is ARPA 45.
The RFP went out, we had received submissions, they were sent to the EDC, we have a meeting coming up. Where they'll be reviewing the submissions and discussing what the next steps are. Determining if they wanna have interviews or if there's other questions related to the responses. Two came in under budget, one came in over budget.
And the facility study, we've kind of paused that because after the SBC. Took a different direction and the Board of Ed moved forward with a study specifically for their schools and wanted to see how that. Realigned to determine what, if anything, with the schools needs to be in the study. So we still have to finalize the RFP and put that out, so we've extended them to the Board of Ed's project. Consider. Right, it brings us to item 5, projects to close at the next meeting. Should have a list for you, beginning of next week.
Okay. And we'll
Is
put
that
it on the
okay?
agenda for next time.
Yeah.
But it sounds like the ones that are. There's not a lot that are, they're either ready to close it or not.
Yeah.
We're not in limbo on many things.
No, and I don't think there's really any surprise on the amount of funds we're returning, which is good.
Right,
It's the amount for, ARPA 13, the town devices. We have 489. I think it's gonna be more than that. I think it's gonna be, closer to $3,000,
okay.
so a little bit more than we thought, which I like.
Mm-hmm. Which means that when we get to, so, I mean, we can't at this meeting anyway, but if we had wanted to. Approve any of these. Well, there's only 2 items that are just possibilities to be funded. The playground and the gutters. But the gutters, we said we're waiting for the facility study to say if we need it.
Yeah.
And the playground, we can't do that now anyway. There's no rush to approve it because, they'd have to do it in the spring, so.
And if I recall, Bill had said to us that he didn't think that 90,000 was gonna cover all, that it was just gonna be, a portion of, and so the spring is when they get more realistic quotes. So some of what, the folks from the library were sharing with us before, the questions that were coming from folks that came out to look at what they deemed necessary in the project, and some of their questions were, well, should you be doing this, and should you be doing this, should you be doing, X, Y, and Z, so. I think, not knowing what those things are, we talked to them about developing a clear RFP to put that out and having a walkthrough as part of it. And so I think that might answer some of their questions and determine what they get back. Maybe it's encompassing some of this stuff, I'm not really sure, because we haven't been privy to the conversation.
Okay. That's that then. There's no one online.
There was one person online. Anyone press, that brings us to present to speak. Again, we can't take action at this meeting, which is why we're moving a little quickly. Anyone present to speak?
An update on the fuel fund 16. That has a balance of $952. And there's been some fundraising, $500 from bingo. And concession sales also went to the fuel bank fund.
Okay.
One person to speak, going once, going twice. Right. That's all we got.
That's all we got. All right, so our next meeting is October 2nd, and that's not a holiday, right?
No, the ninth.
So yeah, October 2nd is, and I'll definitely not forget to send it in the agenda this time. But we wouldn't have been able to do anything today anyway, so. That's why I wasn't too worked up about it. But, yeah, we'll get it all sorted out, so. And that one will be an afternoon meeting too. Yeah, because it's just a regular meeting. It's only when we do the public hearings that we do it in the evening, so.
What's the date?
The 2nd, October 2nd.
I'm gonna be in Kentucky, October 2nd. FYI.
All right. I'll move to adjourn.
Second?
Oh, we can't.
Oh, yeah.
We just end.
Yeah.
Right, we can't
We're just
vote on
gonna-
anything, we're just gonna end. All right, meeting adjourned.
Yeah.